My dear Patterns of Possibility listeners, I want to let you know that I really do appreciate you listening to this podcast. Your listenership means a lot to me. And this podcast is my sincere gift to you. And maybe you'd like to take action on reciprocating this gift. If you would, I'll mention a few things that are pretty helpful to me in the creation of this podcast. One thing that you could do is rate and review this podcast on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Make sure to give it 5 stars. And if you're listening on YouTube, please like and subscribe. It helps a lot. Also, another thing that you can do to support my efforts is to sign up at my email list at Patterns of Possibility. When you sign up, you'll receive actionable steps to making meaningful connections. We talk about everything from people pleasing to ghosting, socializing do's and don'ts, compliments, one-sided friendships, and everything in between. So if you'd like support on making more meaningful connections with your friends and family or businesses and coworkers, sign up. Another thing that you could do is follow me on social media. I'm looking at TikTok in particular because I'm there all of the time. I'm on the road to reach 10,000 followers so that I can live stream some of my workshops. It'd be really helpful, and it would help me bring these opportunities to you for free. The last thing that I can recommend that you do is if you like this podcast and you know of someone who might enjoy it, please share it with that person. Share it with a friend. It really does go a long way. With that said, once again, your listenership means a whole lot to me. Thank you so much for your support. Hey, what's going on? My name's Coach Lee Hopkins. My pronouns are he, him, his, and you're listening to the Patterns of Possibility podcast. This is a podcast dedicated to helping you replace harmful patterns with new possibilities. In each episode, we'll explore topics that inspire you to be yourself, live your truth, and make lasting connections. And this episode, we are going to be talking about going out, getting out there, doing the actual social thing. Where do you go? What do you do? What do you say when you're in places with people? You want to make connections. Those are all questions that come to mind. They're all frequently asked questions of me. So what I'd hope to do in this episode is talk about some of those experiences that I have, because I'm always speaking about my personal experiences, and hopes that they might be able to help you. By the end of this episode, I'm going to help you understand a bit more how to maneuver in spaces, new spaces that you're going to meet new people. Are you ready? Let's go. Okay, so raise your hand if you have terrible anxiety and you hate people. But you still want to make friends. You still want to not be lonely. It's just that you can't stand all the stupid people, the people who annoy you, who frustrate you, and you know that they're out there. You know that they're out there silently judging you. They're not understanding of your behaviors, of how you move, your habits and stuff. You have to constantly explain to these people what you do, and you're just tired of it. You're just tired of it. Okay. If that's you, I've got some good news for you, and I've got some bad news for you. I'm going to give you the bad news first. The bad news is there are people out there and you're going to have to wade through them. You're going to have to suck it up is not the right kind of terminology that I want to use, but that's the first thing that's come to my mind. Suck it up. Got to wade through these people. And you got to meet people who mean something to you. You're going to meet people who mean something to you. The good news is that, well, if there weren't those kind of people out there who didn't understand you and who didn't appreciate you, who didn't care about you, you would never be able to cherish the people out there who really do. Who really do. So when you look at those people, when you go to these events, whatever event it is that you're going to, I'm really focusing on the personal side. When you're going out to meetups and you're trying to meet new people, or you go to places where there are populations of people, because that's everywhere. But when you go outside, basically, you're going to find people who don't really understand or appreciate you. And like I said, the good news is that there's this contrast in between meeting a bunch of people who just aren't your cup of tea to when you find those people who really are your cup of tea, you're going to be able to cherish them. So that's the good news of the whole thing. The good news. We focus on the good news. So what I aim to do in my whole profession as the social connections coach is to help people wade through quickly as possible, understand who is not quite the best kind of person to hang out with. The people that don't mesh with them, the people that don't understand or appreciate them, the people who really just don't feel comfortable. We don't feel comfortable with them, and they don't quite feel comfortable with us. And there's these societal rules that kind of bring us together that say if you're uncomfortable with this person, you really can't show it or say it. There aren't any really tips or techniques to be able to handle those people. At least they're not really taught to us. We have to go out and figure them out, right? And so what I want to do is share my experiences of what I figured out, and so that you don't have to spend so much time in places with people who don't really vibe with you, because it's a bit draining. Yes, we need these people in our lives so we can appreciate the people that we actually do meet, that actually have a vibe with us, that we actually care a lot for, that understand and appreciate us. So we want to do as much work as we can to move through those spaces where we know we have to be with people who don't understand us, to find those people who do understand us. Got it? So part of this is going out and socializing. Go and socialize and you hit and miss. Everybody's there because there are no rules that say this kind of person who does this kind of thing needs to be in this space. And you all get together, and it's easy for you to be able to identify each other. Even if you go to big conventions, like if you're an anime fan, you go to an anime convention. If you go to a woodworking convention, or if you go to some other convention like a CBD convention, whatever it is that's really, really important to you and fun and exciting, you're still going to meet people who just aren't your cup of tea, right? You're still going to meet those kind of people. So when we're dealing with these situations, how can we make connection? This is the question that I'm posing. And then, of course, it's rhetorical because I plan on giving you the answer in this podcast. A couple of things that I want you to look out for in yourself and in others, is this: there's a few dreaded things that we do when we get into connections with people. We stay in the small talk. That's the first thing that really annoys a whole lot of people, is doing a bunch of small talk, talking about nothing, talking about the weather, and nobody cares about the weather. I'm telling you, if you're a meteorologist or a storm chaser or something like that who does it with your profession, or you're really passionate about the weather patterns in the world, then you don't be talking about the weather. Don't spend so much time talking about the weather. Don't spend so much time talking about the weather or little things that aren't important to you, right? We want to talk about those things that are meaningful and interesting to us. So if you're in Chicago, I have this speed friending event that happens on the first Sundays of the month at Eli Tea Bar. And at the speed friending event, I talk about, at the beginning, I give a little tidbit about what you need to talk about to make these more meaningful connections with people, right? And I focus on telling people a bit about your history, your hobbies, and your habits. So you want to think of something that has happened in your history, some hobbies that you have, or some habits that you have, and talk about those things instead of talking about the weather or small talk. It's not really deep stuff. It's just essentially talking about yourself. And if you hate talking about yourself, we've got a problem here. I would not recommend that you go out there and try to make friends, because people want to get to know you. So if you hate talking about yourself, you may as well just hop on a call with me. Let's have a conversation, or talk to a therapist about what's going on there. Because if you're not showing up as you, there's nothing to know. There's nothing for them to know. There's nothing for them to connect up to. So that's the first thing. Small talk Small talk, we hate it. You hate it, I hate it. We don't like it. We do it. There's a purpose for it. We do it because we want to make sure that it's safe, it's okay to move a little further, that they're speaking our language, that we have a little bit of vibe, that we're not completely icked out by them. We do a little bit of small talk, but then we move away from that and start talking about ourselves. That's one of the things that's going to help you discern whether this person that you're talking to is, your cup of tea, right? What people do, another thing that happens is oversharing at conversations. So what we do is we don't quite know how to move past the small talk because we try really hard not to do small talk. We want to be open, we want to be authentic, we want to share, but we go for the deep, deep stuff. You go for the deep, deep, deep stuff. I had the really deep. We go for that stuff. We reach down, and it might even feel deep to you. But it's heavy for somebody else. He's talking about how your dog just died, or talking about how you lost your parent, or how you talked about how you were so mistreated and abused by your ex-partner. I just said hello to you. Now, this is something to watch out for you and the other person. So if you're doing this is something that you need to watch out for, because it is definitely way too much information. It sets an expectation for your relationship that they are always going to be there to take care of you. And it creates this dynamic in which they are set up to be this therapist friend for you. They're there to carry your heavy loads. And it's really a difficult place to be in. Right? Those heavy emotions like anger, sadness, and fear are these emotions that I think you really need to get consent before dumping upon somebody. You really need to do that. And if you are a person who goes out there and you overshare talking about those heavy topics, you're not paying attention to how this person in front of you feels. They're just here to have a good time, likely. They're not here to be your therapist, to carry the weight of your problems or anything like that. They're not here to problem solve for you. And if you create that kind of relationship with them, it's going to be very, very difficult for it to adjust. So let's say when you start to get healthier, when you start to become a more healthier person and your life changes and you want to talk about happier times, well, your relationship was built on the foundation of you just being a wreck all the time. Just being a wreck all the time. And they're there for you. And they don't know what to do now because now you're not a wreck. And those people unintentionally may sabotage you. I've been in this position before, in both sides, I'm like, I'm always here for you. I'm doing stuff for you. If you're doing things for yourself, what am I going to do? How am I of use to you? How am I a friend? How am I a friend to you? So you want to be careful of that. And if somebody's oversharing with you, in the same capacity, it may be tempting if you're used to cleaning up after people or supporting people in that way. I want to encourage you to let go of that right away. Just be like, yeah, this is not the dynamic that I want in my relationship, and let it go. Let it go. So we talked about small talk. We talked about small talk really quick. Don't small talk. But then people overcorrect with oversharing. And instead of oversharing, what we want to do is talk about our history, hobbies, and habits. We talk a little bit about ourselves. The way that I go out there to make friendships and connections is that I understand that a lot of people aren't going to get me. Like I said in the beginning, a lot of people aren't going to get you. A lot of people just aren't going to understand you. But many of us go out and we assume that they're not going to understand us or get us without actually testing, without actually trying, without actually speaking, without actually saying something about us and letting them, assuming that they've made all these assumptions about us, but not really confirming it. So when you go out there, make sure that you confirm by talking about you. Recognize that people aren't going to understand you, and then move away from those people who aren't going to understand you or who demonstrate that they don't understand you, right? That's the real key, is that you have to see it. You have to really experience it. It just cannot be in your head. Otherwise, you're going to be stuck not wanting to go out and meet people. If anything, take the mindset with you that there are people who aren't going to understand you, and that's okay. It's worthwhile when you find the people who do understand you. I'll be right back with the Answer Reddit question. Did you miss the Love Yourself First conference that happened last weekend? We missed you too, but that's okay. We're definitely going to have this again next year for sure. But if you can't wait until then, we have recordings that are available on my website. Just go ahead and check out patternsofpossibility.com. Click that tab that says Love Yourself First Conference and go check out those replays. You'll find details about being a highly sensitive or highly sensory person. You'll hear from a friendship consultant who actually gave actionable steps to make meaningful connections in the workplace. How do you navigate friendships and connections in the workplace? And then we also had stories, and I even gave a special presentation that you won't see anywhere else. Just go to patternsofpossibility.com, click the link that says Love Yourself First Conference, and check out those replays. You will be glad that you did. All right, now it's time for the Reddit friendship advice question. If you have a friendship advice question that you think I should answer, tag me in it on Reddit. My handle is Brilliant and Resilient. That's Brilliant, the letter N, Resilient. How to make friends. No energy to get friendly with people. Just help me out. I know people like me and I can talk to so many people, but I have no friends because I can't get comfortable with them. I am in college and all I talk about is exams and studies. Small talk always, or a small hello. I want to become their friend. I want people to make me happy. Like, what should I do? How do I sit with their groups? How do I talk with them for a longer period? I always want others to come up to me or invite me to sit with them. I don't know what's wrong with me. I don't have that energy to be excited or fun with people. What's wrong with me? Why don't I have that energy? I have 0 friends, but I have had a lot of small talks with many people, and they all know me well and think of me as a loner. I want to be in a group and not end up alone. This is a really great question. Of course, if you listen to this podcast, then you'd have the answer. What's wrong with you? There's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with you per se. There's nothing wrong with anyone. So I want to release that idea of there's something being wrong with you per se. The question that I'd love to have this replaced is, what am I not doing to make the connections? Instead of what's wrong with me, because there's nothing inherently wrong. There's just actions and behaviors that you're demonstrating that do not get you the result that you're looking for. So what are those actions and behaviors that you're doing that's not getting you the result that you're looking for? Well, it seems that you're not talking about yourself. You say here, I'm in college and all I do is talk about exams and studies, because that's the thing that keeps you together. That's the small talk in this situation. It's everybody's experience. So what small talk is to me, maybe there's an official definition out there. I'm not going to look it up, but maybe you can. This official definition, whatever it is. But my thought about small talk is this unimportant matters, certainly, but it's usually focused on what everyone is experiencing so it could be relatable. Like everybody that you're talking to is experiencing the weather. So that's how you get the relatableness. I can relate to you through the fact that it's 50 degrees in February in Chicago, and that's just wild. We can have a conversation about how we feel about that. I can relate to you while I'm in college about all the exams and the studies and the classes that I have. If you're in the same class, even better. If you've got the same professor and we're having the same experience with that professor, so you can relate to them. But beyond that, when our class is over, when we're not focused on the studies anymore, we're exhausted with the information that we're receiving or exhausted with the subject that you and I are talking about, there's nothing else. There's nothing about you There's nothing about your interests. There's nothing about things that are exciting and interesting to you. Why did you pick the class that you chose? What in your history, let's say, what in your history has led you to choose this university and choose this class? What do you want to do after you get your degree? After you complete this class? What about your habits? What do you do on a daily basis? What are the things that excite you about life? All of that is missing from this little paragraph that I've got from you. But chances are that all of that is missing from the kind of conversations you're having with each other. Even talking about what you had for dinner, for breakfast, or whatever is also important. Maybe you cook for yourself. Maybe you eat a bunch of ramen. Maybe you are like a college student who eats tons of ramen, or, you you're raw vegetarian or something like that. It's going to stimulate more conversation and let people know more about who you are. So what are you not doing to create the kind of connections that you're not getting? You're not talking about you. And I can imagine if we looked in that a little further, why aren't you talking about you? Well, a lot of us don't like to talk about ourselves because we don't want to be rejected. We don't want people to say, oh, that's stupid, or that's silly, or I can't believe you do this, not understand us. But you need to take that risk. You need to open up and start talking about those things, or else you're going to find yourself being lonely, talking about nothing that's important and interesting to you. So figure out what those things are that are interesting and important to you and start sharing them with other people. Okay, so another thing that you had talked about here is not having the energy to do this. I'm not going to lie to you. It takes work. It is energy consumed. It's energy spent to talk to people, to open up, to listen to what they have to say, especially if you can't quite understand or you're not feeling the same way about the thing. It is work to be in those kind of spaces. It is. But it is certainly worth it. It's uplifting. It's exciting. Once you get the hang of it, once you get the hang of having people open up to you and listening to their stories and you learn about them, it's very exciting to want to reciprocate and be able to open up and share with them too. It's really deflating to be alone. If you're lonely, if you don't believe that there's anybody out there that can understand how you feel about your experiences, it's really deflating to be in that space. But it's uplifting and energizing, and you're drawn towards people who want to know you, who appreciate you, who understand your experiences. The work is finding those people. The work is not resigning to the fact that you are going to be alone forever, because that doesn't have to be true. It's doing the work. It's overcoming. And you can do it. You can do it. Redditor, thank you so much for asking your question. I know that you didn't ask me to answer it, but I did, and I hope that it helps. Best of luck to you. Take care. My name is Coach Lee Hopkins, and you have been listening to the Patterns of Possibility podcast. You can find me at patternsofpossibility.com and on all social media at Patterns of Possibility. And as always, I want to encourage you to be yourself, live your truth, and there you'll make lasting friendships.